Why Jesus? Well, as a former Muslim, grown-up Muslim my whole life, why would I suddenly choose Jesus? You know, a question I get asked by mulanas, by Muslim family and friends quite often is, where does Jesus claim to be God? Nowhere in the Bible did Jesus say that he was God. And, you know, I can understand why they say that, because sometimes if you look at things at face value and you don't really understand the depth of what's been said, you don't study it. But understand, we need to study it in the various languages and countries that we live in today. But in the time, in the context, in the community that Jesus was speaking to, everything that he understood was not clouded or shrouded in metaphorical imagery that was hard to understand. In fact, it was simplistic metaphors that made the message all the more clear. And Jesus was saying in no uncertain terms to his hearers that he was God. And his claim to deity was felt. It was understood. Why do you think Jesus went to the cross? He went to the cross because he was accused of blasphemy. He was accused of that very claim of saying that he is God. So to answer your question, well, why did they crucify him? They crucified him because he claimed to be God. So it's everywhere. But I think one of the most explosive statements that I could share with you is that powerful, powerful verse. We see it throughout Scripture. We see it in the New Testament, used by Jesus many times. But I especially want to reference John 58, where Jesus says, before Abraham was, I am. Now, when Jesus said that, he was saying in no uncertain terms. If I could break it down for you, he was saying, guys, I'm the great I am. I am God. I am the one you've been searching for. That's who I am. I am revealing my divinity unto you. Let's unpack it a little bit. If we go to Exodus 3:14, and Moses says to God, who shall I say sent me? And God reveals himself and says, I am that I am. I am timeless in my existence. I am the one who was and is to come. This is my divine name. This is how you can know me as. And this is what we know as in the Greek as ego eimi. And this is from the Septuagint, the very scriptures Jesus himself would have been reading, and we see that he would have read this word and understood this term clearly. And so how does ego eimi reference God? Well, you know, maybe he was saying, a lot of people say, I am he, I'm the Messiah. He was trying to reveal that. But understand that I am gets used with qualifiers where you can say what the I am is. But in this case, and in the context in which Jesus used it, has never been used by man before. It was only ever used this way by God, where there's no qualifier. But God is saying, I am that I am. That's who I am. Nobody else in Scripture uses the I am this way. There's no qualified context or meaning added to it, but instead Jesus uses it as a direct claim to eternal existence and divine identity. How did the scholars who were following him respond to what he said? Listen, when we look at them, we know further, and we can confirm that Jesus confirmed his deity because they responded by stoning him. They were angry. They were infuriated at this response because they then stoned him, because they regarded what he said as blasphemy and a direct claim to deity. Levitical law required that such had to be stoned, and that was their response to him, was to try to stone him. Jesus used this I am to help us know that he was God incarnate. After washing the disciples' feet at the Last Supper, he quotes Isaiah 43 verse 10, where Yahweh says, that you may know and believe me and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, nor shall there be after me. So Jesus applies the statement directly to himself, as he claims to be Yahweh. He claims to be that I am. We see that he says it when the soldiers arrested him, and just by this claim to his identity as God, and he says, ego eimi, all of those soldiers collapse and pass out on the ground. And we see there that he goes on to use this as the famous 7 I ams, which we find in the Gospel of John. I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd. I am. And he cloaks these. These are not just ordinary metaphors, but understand, guys, that he cloaks his deity in imagery, metaphorical imagery that speak back to the covenant names of God. So they aren't just random, I am the good shepherd, but they are the covenant names of God that the hearers and the listeners of that time would totally get and understand his claim to deity. Ego eimi is not normal Greek grammar for identity. It is theological shorthand for the self-existence of the timeless and eternal God. The reactions are clear proof. The Jewish leaders understood him clearly. They were mad and called him a blasphemer. And we see that only God could back up this statement and this power by calming storms, raising the dead, and forgiving sins. So Jesus didn't just claim to be a prophet. He didn't just give a hint that he may possibly be the divine, but he spoke the unspeakable name in no uncertain terms. He wore it as his badge from eternity. He wore it without apology and mirrored the name that he revealed himself to in Exodus 3:14. I am that I am. And Jesus comes and he says, before Abraham was, I am.